I could not be more excited to introduce, this gentleman that doesn't need really any introduction whatsoever, but I'm going to give it to you anyways. This wonderful man, Barry Habib, who I've had the great pleasure of just watching do incredible things, but I don't want to miss anything. So I actually asked him to give me a very formal bio so that I could read all of the things, because it's so powerful. And if you haven't been in his presence, you're truly about to be blessed with some incredible industry information. But let me tell you about Barry. Barry Habib is an American entrepreneur and frequent media resource for his mortgage and housing expertise. Amazon #1 best-selling author for his book, Money in the Streets, frequent appearances on CNBC and Fox. He is the CEO of MBS Highway, the industry's most highly regarded and recognized tool for transforming salespeople into advisors. Notable awards: three-time Crystal Ball Award winner for 2017, 2019, 2020 by Zillow and Pulseonomics for the most accurate real estate forecasts out of 150 of the top economists in the US. 2019 Mortgage Professional of the Year by National MPA Magazine. 2019 finalist for the prestigious Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, and he's been named to the esteemed Mortgage Global 100 list for 2020 and a 2021 by Mortgage Professional. As an innovator, Barry has founded many successful businesses across different verticals: Mortgage Market Guide, Healthcare Imaging Solutions, Certified Mortgage Associates, founding partner in Social Survey. During his mortgage sales career, Barry's personally has originated over $2 billion in business. He is a lead producer and managing partner for Rock of Ages, the 27th longest running show in Broadway's history. And he produced Chris Angel's Mind Freak at Planet Hollywood in Vegas, the highest rated speaker and trainer for over 25 years in the mortgage and real estate industry. And Barry's Certified Mortgage Advisor, CMA course, is the most renowned for elevating level professionalism and mortgage knowledge in the industry. And I am so thrilled to introduce you to Barry Habib.
Christine, thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Hey, everybody. I hope you guys are doing great. Happy New Year. Up to a good start. Really exciting times that we live in. And Christine, as usual, put on such a good event. I caught some of Ruth's wonderful talk as well. And all the speakers that you have are just so great. And thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to spend it with me. That's definitely something that I respect and honor very, very greatly. But anytime that Christine calls to do something, I love her so much. So I have so much respect for all the good things you do, Christine. So team, we're going to talk a little bit today about what's going on in the marketplace. I'm sure that some of you are concerned about where rates are headed. We've seen quite a bit of volatility of late, so we'll touch on that too. But we're also going to talk about where the real estate market's heading, because so many people are forecasting that the real estate market is in a bubble. I hear that all the time. And then we also have a lot of concern about what the Fed's doing and how it might affect the stock market, which many of you may have some money on the line there. So let's talk about all those things and go through it. But let's take just for a minute here. Let's talk about where the market's gone. Now, I know many of you are probably on MBS Highway already, and you know that we've been kind of calling this thing pretty darn good. The other day, I made a pretty bold call. I said that we'd go down about 100 basis points, and that everything you should, there's not time to mess around, lock. And I told you what to tell your customers is that, you can't get yesterday's rate. I can't buy Bitcoin at $100. I would love to be able to do that. Your choice is not yesterday's rate versus today's rate. That's what your customer wants to be able to choose. They can't have that choice. Their choice is today's rate versus a rate in the future. And this is what we have to explain to them. And when I made that call on Thursday, and I said, look, whatever you've got, lock it in. I know that pricing has gotten worse over the past several days. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to kind of show you exactly where we were. And I want to show you where I'm thinking that we will wind up going here. So let me just pull this up for you right here. And so look, all these little markings here are lock alerts. And you can see here, we've been locking since the top here several times on all of these tops. But lately with this most recent pronounced decline here, we did get ahead of it and we did lock ahead of it a few times. But on this day, I said, look, I know we've lost a lot of pricing, but this is not the time to play around. This is when you have to go ahead and lock in. And we mentioned that in the morning update. And I said we could drop 100 basis points. Oh, I'm sorry, it was January. Here it is. I said we could drop 100 basis points from here in 2 days. And in 2 days, we wound up dropping 99 basis points. So it was a pretty good call. And the bottom line, folks, is that we have to hopefully hold the level that we're at here, right at these levels right here. This has to be kind of a line in the sand. There is room to the upside, but the concern is inflation. And I know that we're going to be getting some inflation reports this week, as well as at the end of this month. And both of those reports, and then the reports for February, are not going to be good news for the bond market. So the bond market's going to have to deal with some bad inflation data that will show higher than expected inflation over the next couple of months. And I think that's going to provide a little bit of a rocky environment for us because the bond market does not like inflation. The other thing I'm looking at here is the 10-year Treasury. And notice how we've been just in this straight uptrend here. And this ceiling here at around 1.82 on the 10-year, that's very important. If we can hold that. And then today we're trying to get under this level of 1.76. If we can close under 176, I think the 10-year has a chance to get back down to 170 and give us a little bit of relief. So that's what I'm seeing there. But let's talk a little bit about our forecast for 2022 and what you can expect. And then if I will hopefully allow some time to try and answer some questions for you. I'm going to monitor the chat window and hopefully be able to answer a couple of questions for you at the end. So just keep those handy, okay?
I'll keep an eye on for you too, Bear.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, so look, I want to go back and just say, hey, what did we think 2021 was going to do? And I think we did pretty good on our forecast for 2021. It's all published and everything. And essentially what we said was that we thought rates would rise at the beginning of the year and then decline into the fall. And that's pretty much exactly what they did. They did rise last year, the beginning of the year. They did decline, but they declined a little earlier. I thought it'd be the fall. It happened late summer. So rates started to move lower about a month or two before we had anticipated, but pretty much the pattern we were dead on. Now, so many people were forecasting housing bubble last year. They thought housing would have a rough year. Many forecasters thought it'd be a tough year for housing. We didn't. We thought it'd be a big year for housing. But as big of a year as we thought it would be, it exceeded even our expectations. So we were one of the few that thought real estate values would go up quite a bit, but it went up higher than our forecast. So it was an incredibly strong year. So we were right directionally on stuff. We were just off on rates slightly by about a month on timing and a little bit understated on our forecast. So what do we think this year? Well, here's what's going to happen this year. The Fed's going to play a major role, one of the biggest roles you can imagine. Tapering. They've already started buying less mortgage-backed securities. They are going to start hiking rates this year. Between March and May, you'll start to see rate hikes this year. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing for mortgage rates. I'll explain why. The balance sheet is the big wild card. This is something that is going to potentially cause the most turbulence in the mortgage rate arena. They've got $9 trillion on their balance sheet. And what they're doing is they're keeping that $9 trillion at that level because as people sell their homes and pay off their mortgage, refinance, pay off their old mortgage, just make principal payments like they normally do on their current mortgage, the Fed gets that money. And normally it would cause the balance that they're holding to decline, but they're taking that money and reinvesting it in buying mortgage-backed securities. So that comes out to about $70 billion a month. You thought buying $40 billion a month of mortgage-backed securities was stimulative. Well, there's an extra 70 billion. So they're really buying like $110 billion a month. So they're going to cut back the 40 billion to zero and be done with that by March. Then the next step is going to be to start hiking rates. I think both of those will be fine for I think the tapering's fine for mortgage bonds. I think hiking rates is great for mortgage bonds. But if they start letting their balance sheet run off, this could drive interest rates higher. It could cause turbulence in the overall economy, housing, job market, equity markets. We'll talk more about that as well. So what does the Fed look like in 2022? So there's 19 Fed members and 12 of them vote. So 4 of the 12 members each year, they rotate. So 4 stop voting. They're part of the Fed still, but just not going to vote. And the voting members really make up the policy. And then 4 different Fed members have a chance to vote. So the changes every year, it rotates. Well, the 2022 group of voting Fed members are going to be a little more strict than the 2021 group. And fighting inflation is going to be a big thing. they have to fight inflation. And here's the thing, inflation drives mortgage rates. So let me try and explain it this way. And most mortgage professionals don't know this, but really when you think about what does drive interest rates, it's inflation. And if you were nice enough to give me a mortgage and I'm making payments to you, let's make it simple. Let's say I'm making a payment to you for 30 years of $2,000 a month. Now you're in the business of lending money, right? So this is what you do. So you get that $2,000 a month, and every month you're able to use that $2,000 to get a shopping list of goods and services. But over time, you can't get everything on the list anymore because inflation is causing those prices to rise. So if inflation picks up speed, your buying power gets eroded more rapidly because it costs more to buy those goods and services at a faster pace. So you're able to buy less and less and less more quickly. It's happening to you where it's eroding, it's diminishing it. Now, you already gave me that mortgage, I'm done. But on the future mortgages that you're going to do, the way to protect yourself is you're saying, hey, look, if my buying power is going to erode more rapidly, the only thing I can do is charge a higher interest rate so that I can collect more money each month from that same borrower or from for that same loan amount that I'm lending. And this way it offsets the more rapid rate of erosion due to the higher rate of inflation. So that's what causes interest rates to rise. We've been in a low interest rate environment for so long because inflation's been non-existent. So if inflation goes up at the rate it's going up, interest rates have to rise, and they have already. Now, the Fed's going to try and fight inflation. That's good news for us. The way they do that is by hiking rates. But if the stock market throws a fit, just like they've done in the past, they may back off. And that would be good for stocks, but not so good for rates. Now, the Fed should have hiked sooner. We know that, but they didn't have the gums. I'm just going to say they didn't have the balls to do it. Okay. History can help us forecast what the Fed actions are going to be in 2022. So let's look at history. Let's go back to the 70s. This guy right here, see, he looks very smug. He was very smug. He's a smart guy, but even smart people can make mistakes. I think really, really smart people know that they don't know everything. Really, really smart people don't get married to something and they understand when it's wrong. They switch. Okay. We all make mistakes, but not Arthur Burns. He was brilliant, but he was too pompous to admit his mistake, which was he thought inflation was transitory. Inflation was going crazy. You know, inflation went from 7% in 1978 to 14% by the time he was gone. I mean, that's a crazy amount of inflation. Now we're at 7% inflation today and everybody's complaining. So could you imagine 14% inflation? It's very, very hard. It's hard on people. You know why? Because their incomes aren't going up by that much. So their quality of life is diminishing. It makes it very difficult for families and it causes a lot of misery in the country. Well, Arthur Burns didn't want to do anything about it. He just let inflation run wild because he thought it would be transitory. Does that sound familiar? That's the same thing Jerome Powell's been saying. Now, he thought inflation was transient. And higher inflation, as I just explained to you, caused mortgage rates to rise. Now, back then, mortgage rates were about 12% in 1978. And I know 12% sounds crazy right now, right? But that was a good deal. It went from 12 to 18. Could you imagine rates going up 6%? I mean, gosh, if it goes up 0.25%, we're losing our minds, right? Well, how about 6 full percent? You know, so right now, if you're quoting somebody 3, imagine in 2 years, you're quoting them 9. You know, think about that. So that's what people were going through back then. It was a difficult, difficult time. Now, fortunately, this guy came in and I got a chance to meet with and speak to and spend a little time with Paul Volcker. What a brilliant man. Some people say he was our greatest Fed chair. And what he wanted to do was kill inflation. That wasn't a popular thing to do because he had to call for some tough measures to do that. You know what he had to do? Our Fed funds rate today is like 0, right? Well, back then it was 11%, but he took it from 11% to 20%. So he hiked rates tremendously. Now, where that really hurt us is any business loans that we have, home equity loans, car loans, they all became so expensive. So businesses weren't borrowing and they weren't reinvesting in themselves. But Paul Volcker knew we needed very tough medicine. It was unpopular. People didn't like it, but the results were good. Inflation dropped from 14% to below 5%. Now, mortgages, which are going to be driven by inflation because you have a 30-year mortgage, it's going to be out there for a long time. Mortgage rates sharply declined from that 18% back down towards 12%, which is where they were. So he did a really good job, Paul Volcker. But here's the thing, there were consequences. The stock market lost 30% of its value, and that tighter monetary policy pushed the United States into a recession. So let's fast forward a little bit here and go to Alan Greenspan. Many of you might remember Alan Greenspan. He was our second longest Fed chair, 18 and a half years. In the late 90s, inflation doubled from 1.75% to 3.5%. But you see, Alan Greenspan was really smart. He said, I want to learn from the mistakes of people like Burns. So he says, I don't want to do the Paul Volcker craziness thing. He saw inflation start to rise. He says, I got to take action right now because he saw mortgage rates start to go up due to inflation from 7% to 8.5%. So what did he do? He hiked the Fed funds rate from 4.75% to 6.5% in a short period of time. He was just hike, 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 hike. And again, people didn't love it, but you know what? He was right. Inflation dropped from a 3.5% rate all the way down to 1%, lower than it was before. And guess what mortgage rates did? They dropped to lower than they were before. Remember, before they were 7, they had gone up to 8.5. Well, when Greenspan started hiking rates, he took it from 8.5 down to 5.5. That sparked a huge refi boom and caused real estate values to really perk up as well, because borrowing on mortgages became cheap. But there were consequences too. He didn't get away scot-free. You see, the stock market didn't just fall 30%, it fell 50%. It got cut in half. And that's hurtful. I mean, if you have your money in the stock market and now how your statements are half of what they were, that sucks, right? And because borrowing costs were risen, stock market was softer, people showed that by spending less, borrowing less. I mean, aside from real estate, which was good, and mortgages, which are good, all the other borrowing costs so much, it'll cost a lot more to borrow a car. So the US entered a recession in 2001. So once again, we now look for history to help us see what's going to happen here. And I did spend some time with Jerome Powell. I mean, the guy's brilliant, but he did make some mistakes here. And in 2021, he saw inflation go wild from 1.75% to 7%. And he kept telling us all along, remember he said transitory. It's like the same playbook as Arthur Burns. And that higher inflation caused mortgage rates to rise. They rose from 2.5 up to 3.3. Now they would have gone up a lot more, but you know, the Fed's doing all this buying. So it's artificially keeping mortgage rates down. If it wasn't for the Fed buying, you'd see 6% mortgage rates right now. And the Fed is currently tapering, which is they're buying less mortgage-backed securities. And they're not going to do two things at once. They're going to finish tapering in March. And then maybe by that time, between March and May, start hiking rates. And it can't happen soon enough, because when they do, mortgage rates will start to improve as the Fed shows they're fighting inflation. The Fed's targeting like 3 rate hikes in 2022 and a few more in 2023. Well, let's see if the stock market throws a fit. Will he still have the backbone and the guts to carry out the plan? We don't know. So inflation and interest rates can still rise until the Fed starts hiking rates. And that's because you're going to see these numbers. I believe you'll see the numbers over the next 2 months of inflation push the rate of inflation towards 8% on the CPI. You're going to get a number this month. I think it's going to push it over 7%. And then the next two that you will see will get us close to 8%. We haven't seen that in forever, guys. If the Fed can tame inflation, mortgage rates should drop, but it could be from some higher levels, because as inflation rises, mortgage rates should rise a little bit more. Now, let's review. So Arthur Burns, inflation went from 7 to 14. Mortgage rates, as a result, went from 12 to 18. But then Paul Volcker came in, saved the day. And by doing so, tough medicine took the Fed funds rate from 11 to 20. Inflation killed it, went from 14 to 5. Mortgage rates, it responded beautifully, went from 18 to 12. But the consequences, again, stocks down, recession. Alan Greenspan, inflation went from 1.75 to 3.5. He acted quickly because he saw mortgage rates rise from 7 to 8.5. So he took the Fed funds rate in a short period of time from 4.75 to 6.5, and he won. Inflation dropped from 3.5 to 1. Mortgage rates dropped from 8.5 to 5. Great for housing, great for refis, but it was not without consequences. The stock market was cut in half, very painful, and it sent us into a recession. Now, what can we expect here? Well, he's seen inflation go from 1.75% to 7%, and mortgage rates go from 2.5 to 3.375. He says he's going to hike the Fed funds rate from currently 0 to near 1% in 2022. As a result, inflation should drop. As a result, mortgage rates should drop towards the end of the year. But stocks are so expensive right now. I'll show you. Should cause the economy to slow. And recession, well, those of you that have heard me speak before, you know I've been calling for a 2023 recession now for over a year. It looks like that call is looking pretty good right now. Now, COVID could play a major role. There's wild cards here. I mean, we know things can change on a dime because of COVID. And then you've got these bills in Washington right now that could fan the flames of inflation. All of these stimulus plans are inflationary. So it's going to make the Fed's job harder. Stocks would like it. Mortgage rates would not like it. And the balance sheet, I explained it to you. That balance sheet starts running off. We could see some turbulence in the mortgage market. Now let's talk about stocks. By pretty much every measure, the stock market is very expensive. It's overvalued. Now it's been able to do so because cheap money, low interest rates, there's no alternative. Where else are you going to put your money? But if we see rates start to rise, this typically and historically can put some pressure on the multiples that stocks have. The stocks are priced based upon a price to earnings, whatever your earnings are, The stock price is a multiple of that. And typically multiples contract as rates go up. So that could cause the stock market to drop. We think at least a 10% decline in the stock market will occur in 2022. Listen, for those of you in the stock market, we hope it doesn't happen, but we think that we see that in the cards. We see that coming. We see stocks having a decline. Now, whether they recover later on or not, who knows? But we do see at least a 10% decline, maybe more. We've already started to see some of that very early this year. It started early. You can see that in the NASDAQ, which has had a tough time. So mortgage rates, where do we see them? Well, we came out with this in December, and here we are. We're almost at our target, right? Mortgage rates are kind of at 3.5%, zero right now. So we thought that they'd go up towards 3.75 at the peak. That might happen over the next couple of months. Towards 3.75, so maybe 3.625. So we were already at 3.5. So did they have room to go to 3.625, 3.75? Yeah, we think so, and that should peak along with inflation. But then later on in the year, the Fed's going to fight inflation. Let's hope they stay to it. Stock market retreats. That money goes into the bond market, slowing economic conditions. Interest rates should kind of move towards 3% at the end of the year. And our forecast is setting up a great refinance opportunity. So here's your strategy. You're going to do somebody's mortgage today. I'd rather you don't pay a lot of points. I'd rather you don't pay upfront MI, and I'd rather you not worry about the lowest rate. Worry about the lowest cost. Put people in higher rates with lower costs, because the balance there. It's like what, a 5-year break even between the two. You're not going to have the same mortgage for 5 years, because either you'll move or you'll refinance, because you're going to get a refinance opportunity, if not the end of this year, for sure next year, or when a recession hits. And that means you will have the opportunity to take that rate today and refinance it. So any points, you won't ever get them back. Any upfront MI, you won't ever make that back. And even the money that you're spending on closing costs, if you could trade it for a higher rate and get away without closing costs, if you can, do it, because it'll put you in a position. Now, many of you heard me say this, and I said this in 2019 in Tampa, Christine, as you know, to your whole group. And I said to everybody this exact same advice. And I said, you're going to have an enormous refinance opportunity in 2020, because I said there's a recession coming. And we did get the recession in January 2020, 2 months before the lockdowns and COVID hit. But we did call that right. And I'm looking at the same kind of setup. So this is the exact same advice I gave, and everybody took that advice, was very happy, because everybody refinanced those customers later. So just think about this with your clients. Okay. Now, there's a lot of points of friction out there in real estate right now. People are giving real estate a black eye. I'm going to show you why I think real estate is such a good deal, and why it's going to continue to go up. And listen, Christine said, I've been blessed. We've won 3 awards. Nobody's ever won it twice. I won it 3 times for the most accurate real estate forecaster. The stuff I'm going to share with you is much of the stuff that we talk about. But one of the things you're seeing today is you're seeing multiple bids on homes. You're still seeing that. And you're seeing bid over asking price. And look, team, I mean, that's rough to bid over asking price. I don't want to pay any over asking price for anything. Okay. I want a deal, but it might be a good idea, believe it or not, to pay over asking price if we can understand it. Your customer doesn't understand it. Your realtor doesn't understand it. It really depends on you to teach them. And what's the right question to ask them? First of all, the right question to ask is how long will it take me to recover the amount I'm bidding over asking price? And then after that happens, if it happens, what am I going to make in the future? Am I going to make money on this? Is it going to be a losing transaction? You can do that. You can figure that out. So first thing you want to take a look, I'll just use an example. Okay. I got an example of a home. It's in California, but it could be anywhere. It's an $800,000 value, okay, on an AVM. And the current asking price is roughly $800,000, $799,900. In order to win this home, they got to bid $40,000 above asking price. So they got to pay $840,000 for the home. Okay. The question is how long is it going to take? So because we have the forecasted appreciation for every single zip code, in this particular zip code, it's going to take 6 months to break even. So, hey, it takes 2 months to close. You're telling me 4 months after I close, I will break even. That's kind of a no-brainer. But then I want to know what happens into the future. Well, the forecasted appreciation with a 94% accuracy is 6.31% over the next 5 years per year. That means I'll make an extra $286,000. So, wow, 4 months after I close, the home is worth what I paid for it. And then over the next 5 years, I'm going to make almost $300,000. Where do I sign? And this is how you do it, team. This is how a professional today fights against fintech, fights against all the bullshit that's out there with fighting against rates, this and that. This is how you win referral sources, win customers for life. This is how you do it. Okay. Because how do I get a customer for life? This is how you do it. Okay. You have to be a valuable resource, period. Now, there are people that are figuring out ways to make higher offers, competing against cash buyers, but sometimes you don't have the cash to do so. And because you're bidding above asking price, you can't borrow against it without triggering an MI or not being able to borrow at all, because you all know the LTV is based upon appraised value or purchase price, whichever is what, whichever is lower. Of course, we know that. So but making a higher offer means it's got to come all out of your pocket. What if you don't have the cash and you don't have a rich uncle? Let me show you a way to create money out of thin air. And hold on, you're going to create it out of thin air. And guess what? Here's the best part. It does not have to be paid back. So you don't have to pay back this money. Is it too good to be true? No, you could do it today. You can do it on your next loan today. You all have the capability of doing this. Let me show you how. So let's say it's a $400,000 mortgage, and let's just pick a rate to round number 3%. Payment $1,686. So don't give them 3%. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 3/8. By doing that, I can give you a borrower credit of $6,000. Now that gives you extra money. You don't have to use it for closing costs. Now you could bid $6,000 more on the home. Now you could use it for a break point in MI. Is there a catch? No, you do not have to pay that back. Okay, it does not have to be paid back. When you sell your home, when you refinance your home, you owe $400,000 less the amortization. You're not paying it back. So it's free money. What's the one drawback? Your payment's $82 a month more, except if you use this to leap over an MI breakpoint. In other words, instead of going to a 95, you're able to use this to go to a 90, you'll save more money. Instead of going to an 85 instead of a 90, or an 80 instead of an 85, you will make more money than this. So you'll wind up saving $100 a month and getting a free $6,000. Not a bad deal. Who does this? Professionals do this. Advisors do this. Champions do this. People do this that are at the very top of their game, and that's you guys. You don't get that from your fintech companies or your headset jockeys. Discouraged buyers. You see it all the time. Your realtor has so many discouraged buyers. You have a drawer full of pre-quals. They can't find a home. They haven't found a home. They're getting discouraged. What do I say? Maybe I'll come back in 6 months. Well, if they want to do that, what your job is to help the realtor, help the customer see this and show them a cost of waiting. Okay, I know you say you want to wait on the sidelines for 6 months and see what happens. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Values are going to go up and probably rates might be a little higher, but let's just say rates stay the same because the property value goes up. It's going to cost you $138 a month, every month more, $138 a month, every month more. And the appreciation on the property would have lost $32,000. And then how about amortization? If you would have started sooner, you would have started amortizing loans sooner. That's $7,000. So what does it cost you? It cost you $39,000 to wait 6 months plus $138 a month. You sure you don't want to keep looking? I know it's hard work. You sure you don't want to bid an extra $10,000 and win this home? I know it stinks to bid over asking price, but that'll still save you $30,000 and $138 a month. Sure you don't want to do it? And then co-brand it with your realtor. Really be a hero. Do a real estate report card for every single customer because they all need this. They all want to know what's the historical, what's the forecast, how does their area stack up, how does the zip code do, what would it do to the value of the home, how many homes are for sale, what's the demographics, how many renters are qualified to buy, how many household formations will there be next year, and how many homes are builders putting up so that we know if there's going to be a shortage or an excess. And then we want to know the job picture. What's job creations? What's unemployment? What's income look like in this market? And the big thing is affordability. You know, everybody makes a big deal out of affordability because they don't understand it. Affordability is not just the value of the home. Affordability also means what are interest rates, also means what are incomes. Okay. A home that's $100,000 for somebody who makes $10 an hour, that's not affordable. Okay. But a home that's $10 million for somebody who makes $2 million a year is very affordable. So it has to do with income. So if you take a look at this chart here, California is where this is, and they say California is not affordable. Well, guess what? This is the same affordability since 2014. 8 years, same affordability, okay, as it was. Home values did pretty good over the last 8 years, haven't they? They're going to do very well into the future too. Co-brand this with everybody. So there's a housing bubble, right? That's what Diana Olick, you believe. That's what everybody in the media wants you to believe. There's a housing bubble, right? How do you respond? They say to you, so is there a housing bubble? How do most mortgage professionals respond? Well, I don't know. I think the market's good. Okay, great. Here's how you respond. This is what you do. If you would ask me the question, is there a housing bubble? Here's what I'd say. It's a very good question. The media is creating a lot of hype about this, but that's nothing new. Let me show you. Diana Olick, she's been talking about this along with Adam Data, a lot of stuff in housing. There's a lot of stuff that you've seen about a housing bubble. Every media resource has been talking about it. Now, there's hundreds and hundreds of clips. I'm just going to pull up a few here, just so you could see. Since 2014, what has Diana Olick said? We're building too many houses. Oh, really? There's a shortage. In 2015, she said it's a bubble bigger than 2006. She said this in 2015. So when prices went up 6% in 2015, she just said in 2016, oops, we're in a new housing bubble. And when prices went up another 5% in 2016, what did she say? She said in 2017, homeownership does not build wealth. Really? You show me one person who bought a home in 2017 who didn't get some wealth out of that. And then in 2018, she changed her tune. She says, it's better to rent than to buy in the housing market. Oh, really? Show me one person who rented in 2018 that would have not been better off buying a home. One person. In 2019, housing market's about to shift in a bad way. Yeah, bad way. It's gone up 30% since then. Why is that bad? Then she says in 2019, next year's going to be hard on the housing market. Hard if you didn't buy a home, I guess. And then 2021, she says, housing boom's cooling. And then also in 2021, housing boom's over. It's been less than 6 months since she said that. Home values in the last 6 months are up 11%. If that home were $600,000 home, if you listen to this woman, you would have lost out on $66,000. That's how accurate the media is. If they knew what they were talking about, they would do it and not just report on it. Okay, team, this is what you have to show your customers, because this is the sickness that they're being put through, and they're afraid to buy a home. And anybody who's listened to this woman or anybody else in the media for the past 8 years has missed out on a great opportunity. Now, let's talk about demand. Economics is what? It's demand and it's supply. Housing prices are based on demand and supply. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at demand. Demand is how many people are going to be buying a home. The best way you can look at this is birth rates. This shows you how many people were born in the United States every year since 1928. Here's your boomers, your millennials, and your Generation Xers. Today's first-time homebuyer, according to Zillow, is 33 years old. That means they were born right here in 1988. Now, look at the birth rates after that. Look at this, up, 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 all higher than the present levels. So this is your 32-year-old, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27-year-old. All these age groups are higher than the amount of births that we have as first-time homebuyers today. That means there will be more demand coming to the marketplace. Now, in 2006, when on CNBC, I said there's a housing bubble coming, people hated that information from me. When I talked about it, when I actually sold my company, Mortgage Market Guide, because I thought there was going to be a housing bubble, people said, what are you, crazy? Housing's great, this and that. But I knew there was a housing bubble coming. And one of the things we looked at to make that correct call was birth rates. Now, in 2006, the first-time homebuyer, age 33, was born in 1973, which is right here. Births fell off a cliff in 1973. Why? Because abortions were legalized in 1973. So birth rates dropped and they stayed low for a while. They started coming back later on, but there was going to be a period here. This is 2006. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's going to be a period here from 2006 to like 2011 where we knew demand was going to be very, very weak. We knew it was going to be a hard time for housing. And sure enough, let's take a look. Now, when you take a look here, 33 years later, look what happened in 2006. These are households growing. Household growth means somebody leaving mom and dad and getting their own place and turning the electric on. Well, if birth rates drop, then 33 years later, household growth would drop and stay low before recovering. It's the same as this chart here. Drops, stays low, and then recovers. Same exact thing. Now let's add to that chart builders, right? So builders putting up homes are in gold. Now remember, there's about 100,000 homes destroyed every year. So this typically should be a little bit higher than the blue line anyway. But in 2006, we knew household growth would drop because 33 years later, abortion was legal, so less births. It did drop, but builders did not get that memo. They built more homes than they ever did, and it's created a big imbalance in housing. And in 2007, the same thing. And by 2008, we're ready for a full-blown housing bubble. Now, you want to know why home prices are going up, why you got bid over ask, why you've got no inventory? Look no further than this. So you've got more people born than builders putting up homes. It's that simple. I mean, more people forming households rather than people putting up homes. So that imbalance is creating this craziness that you're seeing in the housing market. And what do we know about the future? We know that based upon this, we know the demand's just going to get stronger. And in fact, there's near record high purchase activity right now, but it really should be a record. Here's where we are now, right? Why is this not a record? Well, because this looks bigger, right? But this is baloney, okay? You had to shut down from COVID. So all this did was make up to fill in the spot here, okay? You got this void here, this made it up. If you flatten it out, you get like a line like this, and this currently would be the highest amount of purchase activity ever. And guess what? It's gonna go up, and it would be higher if we weren't so short on inventory. Now, speaking of inventory, Housing bubble, we had 3.7 million units. Today, less than 1.2 million units for sale. In fact, it's like 1.1 million units for sale right now. Okay, and here it is, 1.11 million units for sale. So you can see the seasonality every year, how inventory winds up going up and dropping. That's the same thing here. It's going to go lower. This will be the lowest inventory ever. And when you talk about households, we've seen households grow. Back in 2007, we had the bubble. We had 116 million households. Today, 128 million households. So what does that mean? 12 million more households with 3 million fewer homes for sale. No wonder why home values are going up. And then I love this one when people talk about the bubble in 2006, and they said, okay, well, you take the peak in home prices in 2006, and today's values are 41% higher than that. Has to be a bubble, right? Well, you got to look at everything. Interest rates, which play a major role in how people can afford homes. Interest rates back then were what? 6.5 to 7%. Okay, 6.5 to 7. Today, near 3. Income, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, $20 an hour back then. Today, 16 years later, it's $31 an hour. It's up 55%. That has a lot to do with it. Let's tie it together. Imagine a home back in 2006. You took out a $300,000 mortgage. So we know that home values are currently 41% higher. So that means 41% higher than 300 today. You'd have to take out an equivalent mortgage of 423 to buy the same home you could have done so with a $300,000 mortgage back then. But rates back then compared to today, the payment today, believe it or not, even though the mortgage amount's a lot higher, is cheaper. A lot cheaper than it was. But how about income? See, income back then, if you had 2 income earners, $3,000 a month, the household made $6,000. Today, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that same household, maybe they're making $4,600 a month. So $9,300 versus $6,000. What's the bottom line? Affordability. Back then, this home, which only needed a $300,000 mortgage, the ratio was 30%. But same home, same people with a $423,000 mortgage today, front ratio is 19%. You tell me, what's your underwriter going to say? What's a better deal, 30 front ratio or 19 front ratio? We all know the answer. So what's our housing forecast? Really strong. Not as strong as 21, thank goodness. Maybe a rise in interest rates initially softens things, but it's going to be robust. And supply is going to increase because things will come online. Supply chains will be fixed. Semiconductor shortages will come in, and builders can finally complete homes because every builder needs computer chips because the refrigerator, the washer dryer, the heating system, air conditioning, all need computer chips, and they're being slowed from the semiconductor shortage coming out of Taiwan. And labor is tight too. So we'll get this kinks worked out slowly but surely. So more supply comes online. So I think that we're going to have a good market. Now, rents, here's the thing. We are not in a world of perfect. Okay. So people complain about housing. Okay. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to live with your mom and dad? You're going to be the 40-year-old virgin? What are you going to do? You're going to rent? Okay. Rents are going up 18%, 18%. And then guess what? Every year they go up after that. If you buy a home, at least you keep the payment, at least principal is paying down that loan. Rent, it all goes to your landlord. And then you get banged every year over the head with a 5%, 6%, 7%, 8% rent hike. It's no picnic. That will show people the opportunity. So where do we see housing? Mid to high single digit appreciation. Wouldn't surprise me to see 8 or 9%. In fact, my official is 8.5%. But think about that. On a $600,000 home, 9%, what's that come out to? $54,000 over the next year. $54,000. You either make that 54 or you lose that 54. Buy a house or don't. Team, what we all want to do is we want to have more referral relationships, right? Especially, look, some of you are really experienced, and that's great. God bless you. Some of you are new. God bless you guys too, man. That's great. So we all want to get more referral relationships. Why not? So what do? Talk to their pain points. Don't say, okay, here, let me give you a Starbucks. I mean, okay, that's nice, but you want to win them over, help them do more business. So here's what I would do. I would, first of all, research my targets and have some commonality when I talk to them. Yeah, stalk them. Go on Google, go on Instagram, go on Facebook, go on LinkedIn, find out about them. Go to their webpage, find out about it. Put a little time and work into it. It's good. It'll pay off for you. And then, hey, congratulations on your success. I saw you did this. I saw you did that. So it makes the conversation a little nicer. And then you say, listen, what you're probably experiencing in our market right now, same thing I'm seeing. A lot of bid over ask. It's difficult. Buyers getting discouraged, man. It's tough. People thinking about renting. They don't understand it. So we are solving those problems. And I'd love to, if you have just 10 minutes, I'd love to show you how we're solving that. You see, what we're doing is on bid over asks. Here's what we're doing. And we're showing people that, and they say, oh my God, I've never seen that before. And then, yeah, then the cost of waiting, people are discouraged. What they're not seeing is that the value is going to go up. So we illustrate how much it goes up. We illustrate how much the monthly payment goes up. We show them that. And we'll even co-brand it with you to make you the hero. And by the way, if you have somebody that doesn't have enough money, we'll show you how to create money out of thin air, and it doesn't have to be paid back. And it actually could save them money every month on some occasions. We'll give you a real estate report card everywhere. And they say, look at this. They say, oh my God, could you do one for my home? Yeah, let me show you what it looks like on your home too. And then buying versus renting, somebody who wants to rent, let me show you why it's crazy, because they're not factoring in all the things like amortization. They're not factoring in how rents go up over time and how that affects cash flow. They're just looking at the first year. We show them into the future. We show them even taking into consideration the cost to sell. We show them that in most cases, there may not be a tax benefit unless they're single. We show them what appreciation means, because appreciation is something that people don't understand. They look at appreciation 4 or 5%, and they don't think about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that means because of the compounding. Albert Einstein said compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. You know what? He was right. Now, rising rates do mean slower refinances. In fact, the MBA says we're down 40% on refis. If your refis are down, I've got something magical for you. Please pay close attention, because what I'm about to show you should make you a lot more money, maybe $100,000 or $200,000 more on top of what you're making this year. In fact, people have told me that they made, one guy told me, honest to God, true story, $165,000 in 30 days after he heard me give this talk. He said, Barry, in the next 30 days after I heard you say that, I wrote 37 loans doing exactly what you told me to do, made myself $165,000. But he said the best part about it was how I changed the lives of those customers and how they all love me and how they all appreciate me, because I changed every single one of their lives for the better. So I'm about to show you something that's magical. Please pay attention. Here we go. So we know that we're in a rising rate market, and I know that rates are not at 4%, but let's just say they were. Let's be ridiculous. Let's say rates are at 4 and all your current borrowers that you want to refinance are at 3. Not the ideal situation. Let's make it worse. Let's say that everybody has an 80 LTV, so you cannot even save them money on MI. So MI is not a selling point, and interest rates are a % higher. What do? Don't do any refinances? Well, no, because over time, the value of the home went up, the loan through amortization went down. Now you've got 27 years remaining. That's another obstacle. You ever hear from a customer, they got 27 years left, you want to refinance, and they say, oh yeah, but now I got to go back to 30 years. You've all heard that, right? So let's exactly go through what this is. So if our proposed rate's 4%, let's make it even worse. Let's say the closing costs are $4,000. So I'm painting myself into a corner here, right? This situation for an LO sucks. I got a 4% rate that I can offer. I can refinance them, but it's out of a 3% current mortgage. They've got 3 years under their belt. They've got no MI, and I got to charge them $4,000 in closing costs. I think we'd agree that most LOs would never even make this phone call, but I'm going to make that call, and I'm going to do this deal, and I'm going to show you how and why the customer is going to love me for it. Because what's going to happen here is I'm going to explain to the customer, number one, that interest rates may not be as high, but we can create wealth for them by managing their debts. Do you have any debts? Well, what are they likely going to say? So let's assume they're a normal family. They got 20,000 in credit cards. They got a couple of store cards. They got one car loan for 29,000 bucks. Nothing crazy here, just some debts that are normal. So I say, well, let's take a look at your situation. You see, you've got a 60 LTV. I know when you bought it, it was an 80 LTV. You put 20% down, but because of amortization and because of appreciation, here we are 3 years later, you're at a 60 LTV. Now I could take this slider here and I can move this LTV slider anywhere I want, but I'm going to put it at 75 because that's kind of a no-brainer to do cash out. So this difference between your current 60 and me being able to take you up to a 75 is cash. It's already calculated for you. It's 91,000. What if I used some of that 91,000 to wipe out your debts? I can't do anything about the alimony, but the rest I could wipe out for you. Instead of it costing you $116 a month to do this, by wiping out your debts, I'm saving you $1,800 a month. Can you use an extra $1,800 a month, Mr. and Mrs. Client? Yes, I can. But wait, it gets so much better, because now I know this extra $1,800 is great, but the fact of it is that you can take it, but you can take some of it. But let me just give you an example. You really don't need it, okay, because your ratios are low. You have a very low rate of 3%. You're making the payments easily. What if we were to do this? What if we were to take that $1,800 of found money that I just created out of thin air for you? And what if you use that money to pay down your mortgage every month? You can do it voluntarily. Now, if I build it in, we'll save you even more because I get you a lower rate. But let's just say you pay it voluntarily. Well, by applying it towards principal, instead of you having 27 years left, you'd have 11 years and 11 months left. What does that mean? I will save you 15 years and 1 month of paying that $5,000 a month payment. That's right. It's like the best retirement plan in the world. In other words, I'm going to save you 181 payments. So 11 years from now, 11 years and 11 months from now, you will start saving over $5,000 a month for the next 15 years in 1 month. Again, the best retirement plan in the world. And by the way, what did you do? You did nothing. Same exact payment you're making today. Did absolutely nothing. Now, if you're saying, well, 11 years and 11 months, it seems like a high period of time, a long period of time. You can't get your arms around it. What about over 5 years? Well, in just 5 years, you'd have an extra $111,000. Can you use an extra $111,000 tax-free? And by the way, guaranteed. Don't have to worry about what Bitcoin does, what Facebook does, what IBM does. Just make the payment. Guaranteed, extra $111,000, extra, tax-free. In 10 years, $250,000. In 11 years and 11 months, you will have an extra $310,000 and then start saving $5,000 a month for the next 15 years. By the way, this was all taking somebody from 3% and giving them 4% and not saving them anything on MI. Do you know what this is like if you saved them MI and you took them from 4% and put them in 3 3/8? It's 8 years you pay off the mortgage, 8 years, and you save them $500,000. People will be throwing themselves at you and thanking you. And this is how you make yourself an extra $100,000 or $200,000 a year, or in some cases, $160,000 in a month, and having all your customers thank you. This is how you do it, team. Now, people are going to ask you this question. They say, hey, what's your rate? Well, what I want you to know is that the best rate on the wrong strategy is a lot more expensive than a competitive rate on the right plan for your financial future. When somebody asked me that question when I was originating, here's what I say. It's a great question. It depends on some things. Eligibility. Sometimes you may be actually too qualified for some products, and we just want to make sure that you are qualified for the ones that we're going to quote you. So we got to go through that process. And then product. There's so many products out there, and they have different corresponding rates. The loan amount can affect your interest rate too. So will the down payment and other costs like MI. And then speaking of costs, the more costs, the lower the rate. The less costs, the higher the rate, but that could be a very smart move. And then the term of the loan is going to also have an influence on this, right? The term of the loan, 15-year, 20-year, 30-year, they all have different rates. But here's the one that my competitors typically never even think about, and it's the most important one, and that's duration. Has anybody spoke to you about duration? See, because duration is really the key as to which mortgage you should choose, and that will determine the interest rate. See, my job as an advisor is to help you select which is best for you. So which loan is best? That's all you want to know, right, Mr. and Mrs. Klein? You just want to know which loan is best for you, right? I don't blame you, but here's the answer. The answer is they're all best for you. So if I told them 5 different loans, they're all best for them. The question is when. Now, when I was originating loans, I did this, but I had to do this manually. Thank goodness we created this in MBS Highway, so it's done in 3 seconds for you. So look, I gave you these 5 loan options, and here's where we are. For the next 2.5 years, that 30-year fixed with 0 points in monthly MI, that's your best bet. And then for the next couple of years, it's the 7-year ARM. After that, it's paying 2 points and upfront MI. Customer says, well, you know what? I'm a little worried about that 7-year ARM. Great, let's remove it. And when we do, now you can see instantly it changes. And what you have here is differences instantly. So now instead of 2.5 years, the 0.30-year fixed with monthly MIs, that's the best for 3.5 years now. Then it's with upfront MI with 0 points. Then a year later, it is paying 2 points. And the customer says, look, Barry, I'm worried about paying 2 points because the last time I paid points, I refinanced 6 months later and all that money got thrown in the garbage. So let's remove the 2-point option. So I got this one and I remove them. And so Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you know what you're asking me really? Is you're saying you want a 30-year fixed with 0 points, but you just don't know if you should pay monthly MI or upfront MI. And the answer is for the first 3.5 years, monthly MI is better. So if you think that there's a chance you will either move or refinance, which I think there's a high probability, choose monthly MI. If you say, I'm not going to move and I don't think I'm going to refinance, choose upfront MI. And you know what the customer says? You, I understand. You, I want to work with. Look, there's an old saying, people fear what they don't understand. All of us do. And people hate what they fear. Why make them hate it? Let them understand it and let them work with you. It's that simple. And then you need to broadcast this. I want you each to be a web celebrity. A web celebrity is somebody who's all over the place. Now, you might hear somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk, very good advice, says you got to do a lot of videos, but everybody tells you to do a lot of videos, right? This is all good advice. So what do? You get your phone, you look at your phone, and say, okay, hi, I'm Barry. What the heck you say? We make that easy for you. We take your computer and we actually turn your computer into a teleprompter. where we give you scripts and scripts and scripts every 2 weeks. So you have something to say and you're constantly out there. So we make it easy. These are not hour-long scripts, okay? These are 40 seconds or so. And you could change the scroll speed. You could change the font size. This is incredible. Now, let me give you just one example, okay? And you tell me if this wouldn't be good for you to post on just one example, right? It's the recent one here. Oh, by the way, you can do your own scripts too. So instead of the same message 100 times, do it once. How about a new script when your customer first signs up that you need this documentation or what to expect? Why not just give them, hey, what to expect? Here you go. So let's do this. Here's one that we could put up there. Now, normally you'd see yourself on the camera here. You'd see the script scrolling. You could change it, but I'm just putting it on here just to show you how easy it is. Okay, really? This is what it would look like. I'd say, okay, record. The real estate market's been very strong, and because inventory levels are low, it may be more challenging to find a home to purchase. That is some people considering renting their next home instead of buying. There are a few factors to be considered before making that big decision. Some of the most respected companies like CoreLogic, Case-Shiller, Black Knight, MBS Highway, and others forecast that real estate values are expected to appreciate into the foreseeable future. This can create significant wealth for your family. Meanwhile, rents are forecasted to continue to rise by more than 5% a year, which can have a significant impact on your cash flow over time. Additionally, your mortgage will amortize, meaning that a portion of each of your monthly payments will go towards reducing your loan balance, which builds equity and wealth for you. This is different than a rental payment, which builds wealth for your landlord. Another big consideration is the level of freedom to do things to your home as an owner, which may be limited as a tenant. I have the ability to provide you with detailed analysis with forecasts for your specific market upon request. Contact me to see why home ownership might be a great way for you to create wealth. Done. Now you posted it. Now you've got a great post. You've got a great video. How long did that take? It took me less than 60 seconds to do it. And if you could do that, so what? What if I made a mistake? What if I made 6 mistakes? What if I have to do it 8 times? So what? So it takes me 10 minutes to do it. Now I've got a beautiful video that's posted that's going to do nothing but get me leads, get me followers, get me reputational credibility. This is what you want to do. Look, folks, just change your focus a little bit here. And we've got to do that because right now our focus is right in front of us. And I want you to see the big picture. Fintech's out there. Rates are changing. It's going to be more competitive. A lot of mortgage companies have gone public and they're going to have a lot of money to withstand some of these wars. Okay. Trying to do this based upon price is a hard thing to do. I'm not saying price isn't important, but we have to have ways to create value. And all of the things that I tried to show you here either create value for the borrower or create value for your referral source and allows you to get more referral sources and allows you to market yourself and be better and have a more meaningful conversation. So we just want to change our focus a little bit. Now, I've got to tell you that here's a lesson I learned from driving school. And I like to drive on the track. You know, that's fun for me. So it's one of the things I indulge myself with. But when I do it, like everything else, I'd like to be well educated on it. I believe in being educated. And so I go out with a professional instructor. Yes, I pay more, but I want to get better. And the professional instructors do give me some great advice. And one time that professional instructor said, hey, Barry, I notice that when you're driving, you don't feel bad. He says, everybody does this. You look a lot at the car in front of you, but you really should be looking a lot further down the road. And he took me to the side and pulled over and he takes my bottle of water and he puts it out on the road. And he says, Barry, stare at the bottle of water. I said, okay. And do this with me now, please stare at that bottle of water on your screen. And he said, look down the road a bit without taking your eyes off the bottle of water, but you probably see there's a sign down the road. But while you're staring at the bottle of water, you can't read the sign, right? And I said, yeah, you're right. He said, now read the sign. I said, okay, can you still see the bottle of water? I said, yeah. And that was the aha moment. He said, you see, don't look at the car in front of you. Look further down the road because on the track, it'll show you where the turns are. It'll show you how to position yourself better and you'll increase your time. He said, but Barry, the real lesson here is when you're home, when you're driving in your car with the most important people in your life that you want to protect. If you're looking at the car in front of you, you're not going to really see what's happening down the road. And God forbid, if something bad is happening down the road, if you look down the road, you'll be able to position yourself and protect yourself better. You'll even see it before the driver in front of you does. And I was like, wow. Now, if we take that a step further, everybody, and we look down the road in business, what do we see happening? More competition, more technology, more rate wars, more helmet jockeys, okay, headset jockeys. And what we really need to do is position ourselves as the advisor. Look, in 2022, information's everywhere, but wisdom is a really valuable commodity. And people will pay for that wisdom with their referrals, with their business, and with their repeat business. And team, one of the things you should consider, and we put some together for Christine here is the CMA. Now, I know a lot of you probably are CMA. If you haven't, it's unbelievable. Everybody's told us that this is the best education that they've received, 25 years in the business. If you just go to the site, there's nothing but glowing reviews. Everybody's saying this is life-changing. It's normally $2,000. We take $400 off because of Christine. You go to becomecma.com and you put the code VISION. There you go. And thank you for the kind comments. I'm seeing people say, it's really what it is. It is an amazing course. It's stuff you don't learn. People are out there trying to steal money from you by manipulating APR. We show you how to combat that. We teach you about the Fed. We teach you about the economic reports. We teach you how to read the bond page and stock pages so you can make better investments for you and your family. We teach how the bond market, stock market, economy works. You would not believe how educational this is for your own personal investing too. And one other thing, if you are not an MBS Highway subscriber, please consider it. It's mbsthehighway.com. It's the code VISION. And we're going to give you a big discount today. People pay, we've got over 35,000 paying subscribers. Many of them pay the full price here, $2,000 annually or $200 a month. But we're going to take $80 off for Christine. This is what we do at our live events. It's $119 a month. And look, if you take the annual and you say, Barry, it's not for me for whatever reason, we don't argue with you. Just get your money back. Look, we're all about love here. Okay. Even if you take the monthly one and you're not happy with, just get your money back. We're about friendship, love, doing good in the world. We don't want to cause anybody any heartbreak or a heartburn. So we want you to be super, super happy and make a lot of money together and really help your customers. That's what it's all about, team. Now, if you say, look, Barry, I'd like to get both of them, you can save more money. It's $2,400 to do both. Now, listen, I grew up super, super poor. So I have so much respect for spending money. $2,400 is a lot of money to me. And I'm sure it's a lot of money to you guys too. So I don't take it lightly if you're thinking about making an investment like that. What I will tell you is if you're in any way, shape, or form, have your doubts about it, you get a full refund. There's no concerns, but it does save you a lot of money. And I just want you to think about one thing. I mean, all the rate locks that we helped everybody with, over the past month or so, all the good advice that we've given, all the tools that could have created another deal, what was that worth, or what could that have been worth to you? Just think about that, because if it would have been worth more than 20, just don't put yourself in a position where later on you're saying, oh man, I wish I would have done that. There's an old Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So think about that, team. Hey, Christine, as promised, I'm here for you we were pretty close on time, but I think we've got about 5 minutes or so to try and answer any questions.
Yep.
I love you, and I'm here for you if there's anything I could do. And team, those of you so kind to spend time with me. Thank you so much for
You're
spending
just
time.
brilliant, and I'm inspired, and I'm an old lady in this industry, and I listen to a million speakers in a year and decades, and I'm just always excited to sit in your room, and I never leave the room, because here's the thing. I'm an expert that people rely on for advice. Where do I get my advice? From Barry and people like Barry that are experts. We have to listen to where the news is going. That was beautiful. I will listen to it a second time in the privacy of no distractions of running this show, so that I get it right when I'm in my closed spaces with my experts. I have dozens of CEOs here that are consulting with us that rely on expert advice. I have never regretted doing stuff with Barry, and Barry always brings it. Barry, I think you've covered I've looked through the chat. You did a good job of giving answers on the fly. In keeping with our time, I think we're good, but I will say this. We're gonna, at the end of this show, let everyone know that our early bird tickets are now on sale. And I know that people are gonna wanna come to the Vision Summit, and there'll be more incredible stuff like this at the summit. So again,
well, I'm gonna be there too, and I want to give you guys all high fives and hugs and take pictures with you guys and have a few laughs. So we definitely want to do that together, right?
Yep, that's it. So I love you, man. Thank you for your precious time.
Folks, God bless you guys. Thank you so much. You're all always so kind to me, everybody. Thank you. I'm looking at some of these. I'm looking at some of these comments. Believe me, it is really, really humbling. That's the only reason we do that, is to try and create value and to do good. So God bless you guys, and thank you. It means more to me than I can express in words, your kindness. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Round of applause, everyone, for Barry, our Zoom applause. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, guys, I give you so much credit also for sticking with it. Good job. We haven't lost many numbers here. That's incredible going into the third hour. I see you, by the way. I've been scanning the guest list here. I love that you're all here. I love each and every one of you. It's wonderful to have you here. Our next guest speaker, I'm going to move right into